This is Change Radio News, the news read by Shamiso Sibanda. In the news making the headlines, Change Radio discusses 2020 news and issues. Harare Mayor Jacob Mafume and his deputy suspended. And finally, Zanupf government unprepared for Cyclone Chalane. And now for the news in detail. A Change Radio held a news review over the weekend. The program panelists discussed the top headline-making stories in 2020. Representatives across the world were invited. Journalist Yvonne Muchaka said the case of the MDC Alliance trio Joana Mamombe, Cecilia, Chimbiri, and Netsai Marova should be an interesting one in the coming year if the state will be having Potraz Engineer Kazembe as its witness. This is what she had to say.
We expected to see the state arresting the so-called abductors, fake abductors, bringing them to court before they can lay a charge against the three to say they are faking the abduction. So without anyone, any of the abductors coming through and saying these ladies paid us, for example, or were paid by the MDC Alliance, then the claims that the state that the three abducted themselves falls away. But all the same, the three are in, they have their case to answer with the courts come January 2021. Now, the state has said that their witness is Engineer Kazembe of Potraz, so it's going to be also an interesting trial to follow, because if the only witness that the state wants to present is Engineer Kazembe on the basis that they were tracking or they could track the phones of the ladies, it's actually going to be quite interesting to note that, because who knows who had the phones at that particular time. We saw that BC coming up with a futile attempt to explain the movement of the girls. Now it's quite amazing that a whole state media would bring out evidence for the state as if the whole country is the one who was supposed to determine whether these girls are telling the truth or lying. If there was such evidence, then I'm sure that BC should have produced that footage to the court, and the court makes the determination. So we look forward to actually following the case in court come 2021. We also noted that Michael Reza, the state prosecutor who continuously denied and opposed the bail for the ladies, people are interested in knowing what kind of a person is he. The other day, Mr. Chimbiri, the father to Cecilia, was actually seething, was very angry because he felt bullied by the state prosecutor. So a lot of questions coming through to actually ask the capacity of our judiciary services to actually deliver justice in the case of the MDC trio. So as media, as interested parties in the things that are happening in our country, I'm sure in 2021 this is going to be another case that needs to be followed. It reminds us of the treason trial back against Morgan Tsvangirai, and the evidence that was shown on state media are crumbling, before the judiciary. And we look forward to seeing how this case actually goes through, and we hope that the ladies also will get closure to all that they have suffered and they continue to suffer. People have argued that it has been more of persecution rather than prosecution. So the issue of the MDC trio dating back from 13 May 2020 to date, we continue to talk about the case. Their bail conditions relaxed, but they continue to appear before the courts on charges that are being leveled against them. We wait to see whether these are another chunk of trumped up charges or the state has something to prove against the three. Thank you so much, Chief.
A National Women's Assembly spokesperson Barbra Tanyanyiwa said the Supreme Court judgment of handing over the MDC to Thokozani Khupe as a move to destroy the Nelson Chamisa-led MDC Alliance was a failed initiative, as the MDC Alliance has become stronger despite the sabotage. This is what she had to say.
This judgment was handed down in the time where we were under lockdown, where there were restrictions, and to our surprise, people were gathering and the police were not doing anything to the Thokozani Khupe faction, whereas when Nelson Chamisa, President Nelson Chamisa and MDC Alliance tried to gather, they were barred or basing on these COVID restrictions. So this COVID judgment, it was a way of trying to destroy MDC Alliance. And most people thought that was the end of MDC Alliance, but alas, it made it stronger. It's now much stronger. Like we are seeing it. We're seeing Nelson Chamisa and his team. They are still leading. They are still strong. They've got that large following, regardless of this Corona judgment that came in March 2020. And they were in this judgment, they were supposed to hold a Congress within 3 months, meaning to say they were supposed to, by July, they were supposed to have done their Congress, choosing the successor, Morgan Tsvangirai's successor, but we didn't see that happening. Instead, they were granted leave to postpone. They postponed this Congress for 2 consecutive times, and today, as we speak, it's actually a blessing to guys that we are reviewing this, and something is happening in Harare at HICC, where the Thokozani Khupe faction are gathering, trying to choose a successor. But tell you what, there is chaos there. They've been surprised by Zupco buses clearly showing that these people are connected to Zanupf. They are holding their Congress during the COVID era. And we saw when they were granted this Congress, it was said they have to go in or in batches of hundreds, but it's not happening like that. People are pegged like sardines. Most people are not wearing masks. There's no social distancing. There's no sanitization of hands. You name it, people there's chaos. People want to fight because the structures are in shambles. Some delegates that were supposed to be voting, they've been turned down. There are a lot of people that were not delegates in 2014. And I also saw, Chief, one interesting thing when I was watching this, I also saw Vincent Tsvangirai is also a delegate, but 2014 he was nowhere near the structure. So you can see, Kuti, this judgment was meant to correct the inconsistencies, the perceived inconsistencies that were labeled by Douglas Monzora to say the MDC did not abide by its constitution when they voted when they appointed Nelson Chamisa. But you see, it's even better. What MDC Alliance did is even better than what we are seeing. Is actually the constitution itself is being twisted left, right, and center.
In the same event, a progressive diasporian, Estella, described the recalls of members of parliament and councillors as shocking, and it was also surprising how citizens did not react to the abuse of their votes. This is what she had to say.
Well, I've never heard of any such thing happening anywhere, where in a country where there's a government that claims to be legit. But one thing that I also found shocking was the lack of response from the citizens whose rights were so brutally violated through the recalling of the MPs and councillors that they had elected. It's a situation that left me thinking and wondering, how does this happen? How do we get to this place where an election candidate who lost in the elections gets to take over a party that won in the elections and replace the leader of that party, and then replace all the councillors and members of parliament of the other party. And it's a very sad thing to note, but I think that it testifies to the lack of understanding in government. I think the Zanupf government does not understand what democracy is, and it does not understand the role of democracy in development and progress. It seems not to understand that in the absence of democracy, there can only be chaos and destruction. Zanupf seems not to understand that its own power is secured in providing services to the masses, in empowering the masses. They seem to try to hold on to power by disempowering the masses, and unfortunately it works against them. It strengthens the opposition, because as the masses see that Zanupf has no regard for their will, has no regard for their well-being, only an insane person would still want such a government to continue to manage their country's affairs. It has been very heartbreaking for me to watch our citizens taken through so many violations of their rights, and there is no reaction, and it's unnatural. I have never seen a people in any country in the world that remains quiet and subdued whilst their rights are being stripped away from them, and in no secretive way. It's out in the open, and it's clear. Everyone sees what's going on. So it is very sad. It's very heartbreaking that our people have been taken through this. But I think what's more heartbreaking is that we are not angered by it, and we do not take action. So you can justify that this is one of the worst violations of law, of democracy, of human rights, and it is a sign of desperation on the part of ZANU-PF, and that too is another source of hope. ZANU-PF knows that their time is near, and out of desperation they are doing all these things, and I hope we can all draw strength from this realization.
Samuel Mudunga, another progressive from South Africa, commented on the state of the economic situation in the country. He said ZANU-PF government is responsible for the suffering of Zimbabwe. This is what he had to say.
Oh, okay. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Tikatarisa tine 40 years tine hurumende iripo iri kutonga kwete iri kutungamira. That is very important. Nyika dzakaita mukana wekuwana hurumende dzinotungamira, but yedu ine dambudziko rokuita hurumende inotonga. So my point is, niti wakasiya nyika, we could say yakanaka pamasira akasiya yakaitwa as compared to Zaire noise. Otherwise, there were some pictures that circulated on social media. Vanhu vachikombea Harare to Salisbury. Kana tikazvitarisa, we could find that Salisbury was far much better than Harare. in other words. Ukatara economy I don't think in this world there is any country who suffered from an extended Africa. Of course, dzimwe nyika dzakaita hondo, dzakaita nzara, but yedu, I think iri mberi kwematambudziko atinayo as compared to other countries. Look at it now. People are crossing from Zimbabwe coming to South Africa. Some are going to Botswana. Some are going overseas. It's just because of the situation, that's economic situation. People are now risky. There were a lot of videos who were circulating on social media. That's because of our economy. Economy yedu iri kurawa nezvunhu zvakaita sezvinotera. There's corruption in our country, reach a very highest of corruption in the world. We have so many resources in our country, just like diamond, we have gold, we have platinum, we have copper, we have everything we could say. But so it also has to benefit the citizens or them, the majority of the people. It could benefit the minority. All those things. We have an issue that some weeks ago, a month ago, when someone was trying to smuggle gold out of the country, 6 kgs of gold. That's one thing that our economy collapse in our country. Munanotora gold 6 kg for him or herself. Anotora with some bag, then on the airport, no. Takaita diamond kwachiabva takanga richifana kubatsira nyika kuti isustene takatarisa education system yedu, takatarisa health system, takatarisa poverty which is in our country, but the 15 billion was just vanishing in our country, unaccountable ikasazikamwa kwayakaenda even right now. If we look at the issue, the economy, we have the issue of COVID-19. But if we can look in our country,
a local government minister, July Moyo, has suspended the Harare City Council Mayor, Councillor Jacob Mafume, together with his deputy, Councillor Nelson Chamisa, with immediate effect over various allegations of corruption. Meanwhile, Mayor Mafume's bail hearing has been postponed to a later date due to the state's failure to file a response to the application. Zimbabweans have criticized Zanupf leader Emmerson Mnangagwa for not focusing on real issues affecting Zimbabweans. These sentiments come in the wake of Mnangagwa launching of a national address and officiating a ceremonial opening of a water tap. In Masvingo, yet there are no preparations to repatriate people in Manicaland who might be heavily affected by Cyclone Chalane. The cyclone is expected to hit areas like Chimanimani, Chipinge, some parts of Masvingo and Rosape. In other news, MDCT held its long-awaited Congress on Sunday. The Congress, which has been described as chaotic by many political pundits. 3 presidential candidates, Thokozani Khupe, Elias Mudzuri, and Morgan Komichi, withdrew from the race, citing that Douglas Munzora had brought in pre-voted ballots and the voters' roll lacked most of the 2014 MDCT structures. The election body declared Douglas Munzora the winner. However, Thokozani Khupe has released a letter stating that she had suspended Douglas Munzora in her capacity as acting president. On a sad note, Change Radio has received a report of a head-on collision involving an Isuzu KB and another unidentified vehicle. The accident, which claimed at least 15 lives, happened at 130km PEG along Harare Nyamapanda Road. A Zimbabwe Republic Police National Spokesperson, Assistant Commissioner Paul Nyati, has confirmed the incident. Let us hear from an eyewitness. Conduct for comment by Change Radio.
Wabiangu madzonzoni aitika pa 20 km pegi paye takoti pacha pamutoko bachere. Ndazongombwawo zhinji odaidzira kuti pa 20 km pegi penyu paye paita madzonzoni. Ini kwakutozofunga kuti kuno madzonzoni ari kutauhanjo yapiko. Tikati kuno pamwe ari kufunga madzonzoni okwarupia chero kwakatiyoko. Tikazonzwawo mota madzonzoni omotokari mbiri kupunzana. Imwe uko pakirikiti kumwe pakirikiti ngazongo sumudzawo galimoto ndomhanyira ikweyo ndikati pamwewo kweduwo pamwe waitirawo tsaona ipopo. Kwakumhanya kusvika pacha. Ndoona wayo tufuregi mumaoko aye. Vai mapurisa omisa. Unzi Netsai mashizha murodhi katakata. Kutarisa kudai. Misodzi yachema zvandisati ndamboita. Handisati ndaona tsaona yakafanana yakadaro. Ndangangosanganawo nadzo zvangu. Asi handina kubvira ndasangana nadzo. Mota yapetana. 4-1 right now. Kutaura kwandikita kunoku. Accident yaane 2 hours yaitika pati right now. Pane vanhu vasati vakwanisa kubudiswa mumotokari idzodzo 4 wakadzvanyirirwa wari imomo. Wafa. Mune mwana mudiki nemudzimai nemumwe wechirume wari imomo. We10 watakurwa wakatofa kudhara. Waendeswa kuchipatara chopamutoko chigona. Chopamutoko kana muchichiziva icho chokukakomoko kuchigona. Ndokwawaendesiwa. Koita 4 wari mune imwe Isuzu yadamuka pakati nopakati. Kukwichuka. Kuti kochimheni kwacho iri mapitsi mairi. Mumota imomo zvakare makabvinyirirwa vanhu varimo wakafa. Mumwe musoro wake wakabuda kunze. Asi miri wese wakapwanyirirwa uri mukati. Akafa. Marere chaiwo. Ndiye anonzi Marere. Akataurwa na kono kwakavazva kuti Marere. Aya ndiwo madzonzoni zita romwana wakwaakatiyo. 4 plus 4 8 plus 10 watakuwa 18. Zvinonzi mumota imomo munofanira kunge pano vamwe 2 watakuwa at first wafira murodi. Handina kuzonzwisisa ipopo. Asi ndasvikira 8 vanhu vari mukati. Varumoti pari kumiriwa painonzi fire brigade kuti ichekewo nokubudisa vanhu iwawo. Eidza kunze kwakuchena. Hamene kuti inosvikawo zvonguwai. Hatichazivawo kuti vanouya vachitoita kutodini. Hamba dzangu mungotetekerawo kuno vafamba vachibva vari muBenzi nowanga vari muIsuzu.
And in our entertainment news, Enzo Aishal has released a new song called Zvidavado. In our sports news, Arsenal played against Chelsea and won 3 goals against 1. The win for the Gunners is their first Premier League match in nearly 2 months. And now to end the news bulletin, here are the headlines once again. Change Radio discusses 2020 news and issues. Harare Mayor Jacob Mafume and his deputy suspended. And finally, Zanupf government unprepared for Cyclone Chalane.